Oh, goodness! Guests! Everyone gather! Gather! We have unannounced guests! Terrific news! Such a fine thing to come in peace. On behalf of the Order of Phamysht Lords, I welcome you. Please, treasured guests, make yourselves at home. But what is it that brings you here? Oh, how delightful! It's good to see other aliens rushing to cast off the shackles that bind them. And you've, of course, heard of our own little dust-up with the Scryve and thought you might join your adorable forces with ours. But I'm afraid the answer is no, kitten. Officially, my people are very skeptical of your race. You're a diplomatic little cherub, aren't you? There's a problem, though. We have heard of you, human. News of your emergence on the scene has already reached us. But no one saw you coming. The Taiwan kept you hidden, we suppose. The sweaty little eggplants. These are troubling times, Woodpecker. We must be wary of everyone. Of our enemies, certainly, but even more so of our friends. Unknown species are very worrying. It's always the ones you don't see coming which are the most dangerous. Please, do not be insulted. I cannot bear to see your lower lip quiver like that. In person, I can see that you are delightful. But unfortunately, the opinion of one lone Phamysht will not be enough to sway the Order of Phamysht Lords. I'm afraid we will not be able to cooperate with your kind at all. Now then, is there anything else, Gumdrop? Us? Oh, we're dreadfully boring pudding. We're far more interested in what you're like. But, for the sake of conversation, we'll gracefully speak about ourselves for a moment. What would you like to know? Oh dear, not the talk. You aliens always have such dreadful hang-ups about this. But very well. What do you want to know? Both, darling. We ate Phamysht for many centuries before reaching the stars. But now, yes, we've expanded our diet a bit. We'd be foolish not to. So many delightful new flavors out there. There were, for a time, but hunger always finds a way. And we don't eat people that often. Cannibalism has always been reserved for special occasions, celebrations, birthdays, weddings. They often volunteer, Muffin. And why wouldn't they? They're the center of attention. Also, for the past century or so, our special dinner guests have been dosed with pain relievers and mood stabilizers. Most report the experience to be quite pleasurable. The insight they have to offer is fascinating. Killing them first would be savage. We're not, no. We eat other animals, plants and such, grains even. Some Phamysht, and it's really rather embarrassing to admit it, actually prefer to only eat animals. Though sadly, we've gotten bored of the flavor of most of the sentient and sub-sentient species around here. Our diet's been a little restricted lately, thanks to this silly dust-up with the Scryve, who taste quite bitter, if you're curious. But yes, we've sampled most of the sentient life in this galaxy. Why, just the other month, some Taiwan flew by. You're friends with those hilarious little slugs? Oh, you can do so much better than that, hedgehog. They seem quite timid, to be honest. They don't travel in our direction that often. Possibly because no ship they've sent this way has ever returned. Dreadful dining companions, of course. Rubbery texture, awful conversationalists. They do have some potential as a soup base, though. Certainly, Rutabaga. What would you like to know? Our history is probably much like yours. Fire, the wheel, antibiotics, all that. We had wars, yes, but also peace. Then spaceships. It's of little interest. What are you doing on the floor, Piglet? Cultural relativism is a funny thing, isn't it? The simple answer is my kind has always lived in elevated places. It shouldn't surprise you to know that we were the apex predators on our world. Many a summer evening my kind has sat coiled up in a tree, waiting to descend upon a meal and deliver a pithy remark or bite to the jugular. Even now that we travel the stars, we're still more comfortable clinging gracefully to something rather than wallowing on the floor. Not that I think there's anything wrong with your wallowing, human. You wallow gloriously. Oh, thank you, precious. This is a typical example of famished mid-century modernism. Well, the middle of our century. Who knows what it was in that disgusting Scryve calendar everyone around here seems to use. Certainly, Rutabaga. What would you like to know? Our former masters? A tiresome topic. About 300 years ago, we were just taking our first halting steps into the stars. When suddenly, out of nowhere, a Scryve cruiser appeared in orbit around our home. It told us that we could be vassals of their great empire, or, if we preferred, annihilated. We loathed being annihilated, so chose the path of a vassal. The Scryve said many kind things about our artistic flair and eye for design. Our cultural works were quite popular on their homeworld for a time. But Scryve civilians are quite fickle. They care little for the stars rotating above their heads, so long as those stars regularly deliver new amusements. They haven't had much use for our art for a few decades now. Also, they took exception to our dining habits, which we had to begin concealing from them. I won't say it didn't happen, Flower. But in all honesty, the Scryve make awful dinner guests. And it's not just the taste. They're incredibly boring, horribly full of themselves, the Scryve. Not without cause, I suppose. Their art is incredible, their food rich and savory, their style of dress grand. There is much to admire about the Scryve, and no one knows it better than them. Yes, we have finally decided to cast off the yoke of the Empire. It always weighed dreadfully around our necks. And we are not alone. All right-thinking aliens have rebelled against the Scryve, which, sadly, isn't many of them. But the Pinthy have, I'm told, as have others. Yes, a very troubling species. A sentient bioweapon. Great heaping masses of sludge filled with viruses. We wouldn't know where to begin with them, meal-wise. You'd do well to stay away from them. They have obliterated entire races more times than they can count. If you need an example, there's a world near here, in the Zeta Shiphios system. Some poor fools there were slain by the Pinthy. Thousands of years ago now, but you can still see some of the staining. Certainly, Sweet Loaf. What would you like to know? Is there anything else, kitten? I'm afraid not, Turnip. No one may penetrate this deeply into famished space and return undevoured. And please don't beg Lemon. It spoils the taste. If you absolutely must depart in an undevoured state, I suppose you could offer us a gift. One of your crew members might do. Oh, we just might. Know that it has been an honor and a privilege to speak with you. I look forward to sampling your morsels more closely in the coming minutes.